Hi there. So this video is in part a video response to a man named I'm hopeless with pronouncing these names. He posed a question in the Dagger forum about how to interpret the technique. He and his training buddy was interpreting a specific technique from Meyer differently from each other, and they were a bit interesting. But basically the consensus was that, well, the Juste was right and his training buddy is wrong. However, I think there's more to it than that, and I would like to show you how I came to that conclusion. Because when I first read this technique, I was like, all right, I know this technique from Filipino and Indonesian martial arts. I recognize it. I'm just moving on. And that's dangerous because that's lazy researching. So I read it again and again and again, and I was starting, okay, there's more to this technique than actually it seems in the beginning. It's not as straightforward as it seems. I would also like, in this instance, because during this process I came into some situations which made me think about the video that Kyle Toll, I don't know how you pronounce your name, made this video showcasing his holistic German dagger approach, which I think got far less views and attention than it deserved. If you haven't seen it, just watch it. I'll link it below. And it's interesting because there is a situation where you block with your left hand, which is the premise for this technique that we will be looking at. And we discussed whether or not to go forward or backward, and both options are of course completely valid. And it's interesting that Kyle is looking at all of the German traditions, because, and I think you might at some point maybe perhaps go look outside that, because I know, for example, that Mr. Roger Norling, he made a comparison between Meyer and Marozzo's dagger, and there's a striking similarity between the techniques. It's almost that some of them seem to be a lot of them seem to be exactly the same technique. So there seems to be some sort of coherent tradition here. Which is interesting. Personally, I just look at Meyer, but that's a question of preference. Still, back to the technique. The technique in itself is basically where you turn around your opponent's hand, you grab towards your chest, and then it says to grab onto his elbow and then break it. Which, first of all, I would like to say is to break it, as in dislocate or fracture. That's fucking hard. That's not really easy to do. That's not necessarily what he meant. Sometimes it's lost in translation, and I have yet to read the original German text. It could also mean that he wants you to bend the elbow, which I think is much more likely that you produce. Or you could just, shift his balance. But again, this would depend on the context. Now remember, in this technique, the defender, even though he isn't specifically stated as such in the beginning, is unarmed. He's unarmed, and the reason I know this is because the technique is described that he uses both hands for grabbing, which you cannot do if you have a dagger. Then he would describe how to use the dagger in that case. Now, a good question to ask yourself is, why is he unarmed? I don't mean to say, because he was showering, no. But is he unarmed as he doesn't have a weapon? Or has he yet to be able to draw his weapon? Because that changes the context and the intent of the technique. Is the technique constructed for me to just deal with somebody who is attacking me while I have zero weapons? Or is it made to put me into a situation where I can draw my weapon? I think this is a good question to ask yourself. Also, I would like to explore this from the guards, like I always do, because I think this is how I came into the association with Kyle's technique and the whole Rogers Marozzo article. And yeah, so I think this can be interesting, and I hope you find it interesting, and so I hope you enjoy this, okay? So, the technique that we discussed is basically, it says to stand with my left foot forward and to do this grab in, extend, touching my own chest, and here try to break or damage his elbow. So far so good. Now, as I said, the context is the context that I am unarmed. I don't have a weapon. Then what I just did, you know, oh shit, I'm trying to destroy this elbow. Then I probably want to take him down, or you know, headbutt him. If I've managed to broke near or disarmed somehow, I'm gonna go in and hit him, kick him, whatever I have. If the situation is that I am armed, but I didn't have time to produce my weapon. Alright, so I might have done this here, off balance him in order to come in so that I can produce my own weapon. That's a new context, but the same technique. Let's say that I am armed. Now how do I find myself in this position? Well, if I'm in the guard, yeah, he comes in on this angle here. He steps outside of my guard, then I just stabbed myself. Here. Then I step in here. Now, because of my own weapon, I cannot grab here. Then I go for the pommel strike. Just strike it straight up. Boom. And why do I do that? Because if I attack here, he's going to block me, that's for sure. And he may grab my hand. Now I'm in trouble. I'm not in a better position than him. Now we're in wrestling. So actually here, striking here, destroying that hand first, then I could go in, and then we could do anything else. So this way you analyze the technique and find out what contexts are possible. Okay, hope that was useful.